While we're waiting for the release of Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, I checked out all the available information surrounding it, namely ones found in the reveal video, its official website, and on the IGN interview. So for today's topic, I will share with you my observations and speculations based from those official sources to give us something to ponder on until more details are revealed. Let's get right to it. The things which stood out to me above everything else were issues from the first game that have now been addressed, most notably the inclusion of missing weapons, like crossbows and early firearms. However, one related concern which I was hoping to find an answer for is with regards to its melee combat system, specifically about Master Strikes. In one of our previous videos, I mentioned that they're too powerful and have a tendency to overshadow all of its other mechanics. Therefore, I'm really curious to find out how the developers corrected this. But unfortunately, the way they described it in the presentation was quite vague. So it's a good thing that in the written interview, Kat Bailey of IGN got more details from Tobias Stolz-Willing, Warhorse's spokesperson. He said that they made some changes and it's now more accessible, citing the mace as a specific example which can be used with ease, and is contrasted by the longsword requiring an in-depth mastery. It's implied that both the simple and complicated approach to combat are potentially effective, which sounds like they got rid of Master Strikes, but there's no way to be certain just yet. The only types of attack we can see from the footage are normal ones and combos, such as an overhead mace swing followed by a shield bash. Later in the reveal video, we also see a couple of sword-related combos, and as I watched all of them multiple times, I started to wonder if what Tobias meant by an accessible combat equates to a simplified system overall. Based on what we know so far, my assumption is that the modified fighting system is going to be centered around combos, while basic attacks and blocking are now simplified, which might share some similarities to what Hellish Quartz has, a melee weapon fighting game that can be learned quite easily, to a point that it's possible to win against an AI opponent just using normal attacks, but pulling off combos can be advantageous at the same time. That's just my guess. It's most likely that Warhorse will upload the combat trailer anyway, so we'll find out soon enough. Before the sequel was announced, I had the hunch that the game was going to be set during the Hussite Wars, but after seeing the wide shot of Trotsky Castle and Hans Capon's party, it's very clear that the sequel will pick up immediately after KCD-1 ended. According to the website, their party will get ambushed early in the story, and I think we got to see that through these clips. If we take a close look at the armor set of this character on the right, you'll notice that it matches exactly what this one is wearing, who Henry will get to fight one-on-one. If I had to guess, I say this is probably part of the combat tutorial segment. There's also something very interesting about this group they met up with, as led by this guy seen in another shot. Upon inspecting his surcoat, the symbol emblazoned on it is that of a winged creature, similar to what these soldiers have on their overgarments. The icon itself doesn't ring a bell on who it represents, but what I do know is that their group is the one who attacked this castle through treachery. We know this because there's a specific frame where we can see two of them bearing the same symbol, and the inhabitants certainly would not have lowered the bridge and opened the gate if they weren't allies. I'm just not sure who this character is atop a horse because his face is unrecognizable even when zoomed in. I also thought that this attack was connected to a shot of Henry on the ground, but the environment doesn't look like a castle interior, and the attacker is not well equipped unlike the soldiers, so this might be an entirely different scenario. It is, however, interesting to note that one of the main story themes of KCD2 is betrayal, and I wonder who's going to be at the receiving end of that. Equally as interesting to this is the decision to make Father Godwin a supporting character, I think it's a brilliant move to make one of the most interesting side personalities in KCD1 play a bigger role. Judging by his one line from the trailer, I could already tell that he's going to be a favorite of many. But did you also notice the other character left unintroduced? This is mostly a hunch, but I have some idea on who this person might be. Based on his prominent mustache and scar underneath the left eye, this could be Jan Ziska, the leader of the Hussites. According to scholars Tom Magnuson and David Bongard, as shared by Joshua Mark on World History Encyclopedia, he was connected with the court of King Wenceslaus IV and held the office of Chamberlain to Queen Sophia, lost an eye in the incessant civil strife under Wenceslaus between 1380 and 1419. As you can see, even though the Hussite Wars was still more than a decade away, there's a bit of proof that he was working for Wenceslaus prior to it. So yes, I suspect this is the great general himself before he became well known. If you watch the reveal video, you'll know that KCD2 is composed of two sections. We already talked about the first half set in the Bohemian paradise, where Trotsky Castle is located. But the later portion set in Kuttenberg is a bit of a mystery to me, because I'm not sure if the story progression will be linear or if there's going to be a time jump when we move to that place. As I researched this topic, I realized that trying to anticipate what would happen in KCD2 was a steep challenge, even though the setting is historical, because major characters like Henry and István are fictional, while those based on real people like Markvart should not even be alive at that point, so tracking the story through them is not possible. This is when I started looking into the coat of arms, and the only one I recognized is the crossed arrows of Ratai, even though its real-world counterpart is entirely different. Meanwhile, Sir Markvart's new army, represented by 3 towers with a castle door underneath, have several possibilities. While the defending army in green mentioned earlier, who uses a triskelion as their symbol, doesn't have a close match. The nearest ones I could find were these two. It was also during this search when I found out that Skalitz's symbol is the sun, and it now makes sense why we see this icon multiple times in the trailer and on the website, adorning Henry's background. It's a nice little discovery, but we are no closer to figuring out when the Kuttenberg side of his story might take place. If I had to guess, keeping in mind the law of simplicity, I think the entire game will be set in 1403, because important events relevant to the main story happened within that same year, including Sigismund's return to Hungary because of domestic troubles. This was also when Wenceslaus was rescued from Vienna with the help of John II of Liechtenstein. Other sources indicate that Sigismund might have released him, but since KCD1's codex says he was rescued, we're gonna go with that. Regardless of what happens, I know for a fact that at one point, Henry is going to be captured by Markvart. We know this because the guy on his left wearing an off-white armor is the same individual who beats Henry up while restrained. Those were my observations for Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 so far. As the release date comes closer, hopefully we'll find out more about the game's overall form, and I'll make sure to update you when something interesting comes up.